Okay, so now that I have my enhanced podcast created, I can launch it and then I can subscribe to that podcast and I can view it in iTunes. Now, the way that you subscribe to a podcast is through its feed. So the podcast feed is an XML file. Now, this XML file has already been written, and just to quickly look at some of its components, it's written in XML, but it's also written using RSS, and it has what's called a namespace that is iTunes. Now, this just means that it's pretty much almost exactly like every other RSS feed, but it's like a different dialect, in that it's got some code in here that's specific to iTunes, but for the most part it's the same. So we have our channel, and then within the channel we have all of the overall information for our podcast, and then each episode that gets released is put into this item section. Okay, so the item is going to refer to the individual episode that gets released periodically. Now, when I launch this podcast for the first time, it's going to have its first episode, and the first episode is going to be that music file that I just created in GarageBand. Okay, so in the item section I have music, I have a link to a website. This would be my website, and then I have what's called a GUID, or Global Unique Identifier. You don't have to worry about this, just make sure that it's always set to the same URL as the enclosure URL. The enclosure URL is what points the podcatcher, such as iTunes, to the actual episode. So the episode is going to be located here. And in order for you to have a unique identifier, you can just put in that URL, which is in itself unique. Now, there are some other things here that you can look at in the documentation to do with things like explicit, no, there's no explicit content, and duration, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is called A Bit of Everything because my podcast contains a few different types of things. So the podcast is called A Bit of Everything, and the first episode is called Music. Now, what I've done is I've saved that XML file and I've uploaded it to my server. I've put it in a folder called Podcasts. So you can see it here, A Bit of Everything.xml. Now, in the same folder, I have another folder or directory called Podcast Episodes. Inside that directory, I've stored my music.m4a file. So I go back out here into Podcasts. Now, A Bit of Everything.xml, that is the feed. That is what I'm going to subscribe to now in iTunes. So in Advanced, go to Subscribe to Podcast, and I have my URL to that feed there. So I click OK, and it will automatically download that podcast, look for all of the episodes. It's after finding the first episode, Music, so I can play that. Open that up. You'll see that the URL links are here. I can launch that website, opens it up, and when it gets to the next section, I can open up that site. So just to recap, the podcast has been subscribed to in iTunes by putting in the URL of the feed, the XML file, into this section here. The XML file contains the information that will point iTunes towards all of the different episodes. The episodes are listed inside the item sections in the enclosure tag. Now, if you have that bit done right, and you haven't deleted any of the extra stuff here, then you should be able to put any episode in here, put any information up here, and use this file, reuse it again and again, just change the information, and you should be able to launch as many podcasts as you want using that.